Hello, everyone, and welcome to Body Bags. I'll be your reviewer for today. I'm Lonnie from Horror Heaven77, and I'm sure you already know that this week, the theme week, and we have horror movies that take place in the winter, in the snow. And the one, I think you guys kind of knew somebody was going to get around to reviewing something like this, but I couldn't help it. I had to. The movie I'm going to be reviewing today is, well, it's a TV miniseries. It's Stephen King's The Shining. Okay, not to be confused with Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, but anyway, we'll get to that. But real quick, I know, it's like part of me really did want to review this, but I'm pretty sure that it's been reviewed many, many times before. But yeah, just real quick, just my quick thoughts on it. I love this movie, and this is the movie that this movie is pretty life-changing for me. And, real quick, I'm really happy. I did not see this coming, but I got this red rum. I got this for a Christmas present, and I wasn't expecting it, but I thought, wow, talk about the perfect shirt to wear when I review The Shining. So, anyway, but real quick, just I wanted to say, I love this movie. This movie was pretty life-changing for me in some ways. I saw this movie when I was very, very, very little. It's one of the first movies I ever saw by title. And, it just blew my mind. I just thought this movie is fantastic. And I thought to myself, wow, this, even though, who came up with this? And then, my mother told me, this man, Stephen King, he wrote the book. And, so yeah, this movie is what turned me into a Stephen King fan. After seeing this movie, it's like I wanted to read every book of Stephen King's I could get my hands on. So this turned me into a diehard King fanatic. And also, too, it turned me into a Kubrick fan. Made me want to watch Stanley Kubrick's other movies. But yeah, it wasn't until later that I found out when I read the book, The Shining, that how different it actually was from the Kubrick film. And I was surprised. And so, just kind of like, I don't know, just part of me just kind of messed up. It's like, wow. Because, some of the scariest stuff in here wasn't in the book, but, still, it's like, I can't, even though it's not, faithful to the book, I still love this movie because, like I said, it helped me become a movie buff. It made me get into Stanley Kubrick films, and more importantly, it turned me into a Stephen King fan. So it made me end up loving his books and movies, and made me into a Stephen King fanatic. So, which I'm happy about, and I still am to this day. So now we're going to talk about The Shining, this the 1997 miniseries, and of course, anybody who knows anything about The Shining and stuff like that, we all know that Stephen King did not like Kubrick's movie. He's been very outspoken about it. He said that, he's not thrilled with it. Even though, like Dr. Sleep just came out recently. And at first I was wondering, wow, is King going to hate this? Because it seems like there's so many kind of like Easter eggs to Kubrick's movie of The Shining. But now I'm really intrigued to see that movie because from everything I've heard, they said that Mike Flanagan did some pretty interesting writing and stuff, and he's able to like simultaneously satisfy fans of the book and the Kubrick film. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. I want to see that, especially a 3-hour director's cut when that comes out. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. But anyway, so they decided they were going to remake it. Stephen King, he was doing pretty good in terms of miniseries. He had done The Stand. That was, want to say like first there was It. That was a ratings blockbuster. Then, like Tommy Knockers, that one did pretty good, I think. But then, The Stand, that really knocked out of the ballpark for him. And, The Langoliers did pretty good and stuff like that. So, pretty much he had carte blanche to do whatever miniseries he wanted. And he decided he wanted to redo The Shining and do a version that was more faithful to the book and do his version of it because he felt that Kubrick's version was far too different from his book. So he decided he was going to do this, which, okay, that's fine, and, honestly, if you're going to remake a movie, that's actually a good reason to do it. Because if, you have the story and, the original film is so far away from the source material, that's actually not a bad reason to go do a remake. it can work from time to time because, I mean, look at like John Carpenter. When he remade The Thing, you know, he didn't want to touch the old movie. He had, you know, he didn't want to go near it. He, you know, he just like, you know, then he read the short story and he realized how different the story was from the actual movie and said, well, why don't we just try to do a story that's more, or a movie that's more faithful to the story? And it's a similar situation with this. But the problem is, though, is over time, this movie became so iconic and things got, you know, this just pretty much everybody just finally accepted it. Whether, you know, after a while, this is the movie, this is it, you know, so, oh well. And people just finally over time just took it for what it was. And, but, so King decided, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do it as a 3-part miniseries. And, you know, yeah, it's an interesting, you know, the commentary on here is pretty interesting when you find out some of the things going on with the making of this miniseries. Yeah, and we found out, you know, like, well, obviously in the original Shining that, you know, Kubrick cast Shelley Duvall, and his idea of Wendy Torrance was a woman who was not a raving beauty, but she was kind of more in love with her husband. Her husband was in love with her. And we find out that that's completely different in this version because, you know, he gets Rebecca DeMornay, Rebecca DeMornay, man, she was definitely one of my childhood crushes growing up. I saw Risky Business at a time when I really should not have been watching that. And then I saw her in And God Created Woman. Yeah, and Rebecca DeMornay has always been a lifelong crush of mine. But anyway, so getting back to this, yeah, they were having a lot of trouble with this, particularly the casting of Jack Torrance, because the biggest problem was that no actor wanted to follow behind Jack Nicholson, which in a way that's understandable, but at the same time, it doesn't make a lot of sense because in this version, when you see Steven Weber's performance, it's a bit different from what Jack Nicholson did, you know, because I mean, so many people have complained about, well, you know, yeah, Nicholson just seems like he's insane from the very first time you see him on screen in the movie and stuff. Whereas like, but in this, you know, Steven Weber, he starts off as kind of a really nice guy, pleasant, easy to get along with. I mean, of course, you know, he's Jack Torrance. So, you know, he's got his demons. He's got his problems with alcohol, but, you know, it is a little bit different in the sense in the original, Shining that, you know, Jack Torrance kind of seemed like he felt like he was a little bit better than the people he was with. You know, it seemed like he should have had a better wife than Wendy Torrance. He should have had a better child or no children at all than Danny. So it's like he kind of just really resented his family. Whereas in this one, the character Jack Torrance is incredibly insecure, you know, because here he is, he's a failure as a teacher. He's a failure as a husband. He's a failure as a father. He's a failure as a writer. You know, he's like trying to really do the best he can and dealing with alcoholism and things like that, which, you know, it does make for an interesting character. And Steven Weber is compelling in here. And so it's like, you know, when people are sitting here, you know, I don't see why you really should compare him to Jack Nicholson because their performances really are different. And, but anyway, though, you know, of course we know the story. The story is Jack Torrance, his wife Wendy, his son Danny, they get, you know, Jack gets his job as caretaker of the Overlook Motel for the winter. So he takes his family there, and little Danny, he encounters Dick Halloran, who also has the gift, you know, the same gift that Danny has, because Danny can see things and see into the future, things like that. And, you know, Dick Halloran calls it the Shining. This power is called the Shining. And so they're left in the Overlook Hotel, and one of the biggest differences between this miniseries, the book, and the original movie was that in this story, the hotel is definitely haunted. You know, it's clearly a ghost story. It's definitely a haunted hotel story. So that, you know, pretty much it's as simple as that. Whereas in the original movie, Kubrick decided, even though they had to abide by a couple of inconsistencies, as they say, Kubrick decided very much more, he wanted to make more of a psychological horror movie instead of an all-out ghost story, even though they did kind of write themselves into a corner a couple of times and just had to, you know, they had to go that route just to get out of it, but still. No, but in this version here, it's totally a ghost story. It's the hotel is haunted, and, you know, and one of the interesting things about this is that they take, you know, they go to the hotel, which is the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, which, you know, and they shot there. They shot in the motel, which is pretty interesting, and which is the hotel that King and his wife stayed at, where King had a spooky night there, and he got scared in that hotel, and that's what gave him the idea to write the book The Shining in the first place. So that's pretty nifty, pretty good idea. And, of course, they stay at the hotel, and, you got certain things, like, unfortunately, you find out, like, certain elements from the Kubrick movie were more Kubrick's idea than King's, like the blood coming out of the elevator, and, like the two twin girls standing in the hall and stuff. Like, a lot of that was more Kubrick's ideas than it was King's, but you got like the dead woman in the bathtub, which, the scene in here, it works. It's well done. I mean, it's a TV movie version of it, but still, it's pretty well done. And, and it's kind of what's neat about this is that this works in its own way as the original movie. That kind of works in its own way too. Whereas, in the original movie, that's more meant to be like, that's more of a horror for men. That's more scary to men. The way it's, because Jack Torrance goes in the room, sees this beautiful, sexy, delicious woman in the bathtub, and then he starts making out with her, then realizes that she's an old, rotting corpse and stuff like that. So that's pretty horrifying in and of itself. But in this version here, the woman, played by the director's wife, Cynthia Garris, Mick Garris is the director. But that one's done pretty well too, and it's, so yeah, the bathtub scene works really well in here. Now, I got to agree with a lot of people who've reviewed this movie in the past that the hedge animal, the CGI hedge animals, really look like garbage. They don't look good at all, and it's kind of, I hate to say it, but when watching this miniseries, you kind of understand why Kubrick just decided to chuck that idea and just turn it into a hedge maze. So you kind of get that idea. So. But maybe if they had better effects, it's like would have pulled off better. But I mean, it's a good idea, but it's definitely one of those things. Like when you're reading the book and you play it out in your imagination, it seems like it works a lot better than what they put on the screen. So if anything, it kind of teaches you a lesson that certain things that work in literature don't always translate well to screen. So there's that. But anyway, so they get into the hotel. They find out the hotel is genuinely haunted. Jack, all his insecurities start, really, it ends up being a catalyst for the ghosts to start messing with him, and he slowly descends into madness and anger and hatred. And meanwhile, Danny, he notices things. He's seeing horrible things going on, and he decides to, reach out to Dick Halloran, who told him, if you ever, if things get too bad or things get out of hand, let me know and I'll come for you, or I'll come to help. And finally he does. And another big, surprise from the original movie to this miniseries that, if you've seen the original movie, you know that Dick Halloran does not fare well in the original movie. And, in this version, he does a little bit better because he survives in this version, which was the way King wrote it in the book. Dick Halloran lived in the story. But so anyway, but yeah, the story, certain things I think, they did pretty good here. I think, honestly, the whole, relationship with Jack and Wendy, that works a lot better in here. I gotta be honest with you, Rebecca DeMornay, she's definitely going to win the Hottie Award over Shelley Duvall. No offense. I know that's horrible to say, but it's true. But, anyway, but, when you try to compare them, Rebecca DeMornay was really good in here, but Shelley Duvall was great in her own way, but that's because they're kind of playing two different characters. And the same thing goes with, Steven Weber playing Jack Torrance versus Jack Nicholson playing Jack Torrance, because, Jack Nicholson did great. I'm not taking anything away from his performance. He's great. He's fun to watch and everything else. But Steven Weber, he's not really just trying to imitate Jack. Around the end of the miniseries, when he's really full on crazy, yeah, it does seem like he's just trying to imitate Jack Nicholson in a way, but it's like everything else, it's like the performance is really pretty much day and night. So it's pretty 180 from Jack Nicholson. So, Weber, I think, did a really good job. DeMornay, she did a good job. Melvin Van Peebles, who played Dick Halloran, he did a really fine job in here too. I have to admit, personally, I like Scatman Crothers' version a little bit better, but still, Melvin Van Peebles did a good job. Courtland Mead as Danny. I'm kind of I'm kind of with a lot of other people in this. I think Danny Lloyd was a little bit better at it. But that's like another difference too, is that, in the original movie, we saw whenever Danny was talking to Tony, his imaginary friend who shows him the future and stuff, it's like, Danny Lloyd was always like, Danny not here, Mrs. Torrance. Whereas in this version, we find out that Danny is actually like a future version of Danny coming to warn himself about things that are coming. So that's different, you get some, you got some cameos by some good horror, icons in here. Stephen King himself makes a cameo in here. They're kind of hard to spot, but like the late great David Scow, the writer, he makes a cameo in here. Frank Darabont, I think they say he shaved his beard, but he appears in here. There's a little cameo by Sam Raimi, so that's pretty nifty. And overall, just I actually enjoy this. This is a case of I could watch this based on its own merits, and even for like a 4.5 hour movie, the pace does keep along. Whereas like that's one thing I noticed, like a lot of people kind of complain about this movie now. To a lot of people, this movie, it takes a little too long. It's kind of slow and plodding and things like that. I mean, I'm fine with it. It doesn't bother me. But a lot of people, it's like, this is just too slow. It takes too long getting going. Things like that. So you kind of understand that. But this here, even for a 4.5 hour miniseries, it does keep your attention. And, it builds up the character, builds up, the tension, all that kind of stuff. So I could watch both of these based on their own, merits. But, but like I said, even though I enjoy this because it is King's vision, it is what he originally wrote, and this is a much more faithful adaptation of the book and things like that. So I can enjoy it for that. But at the same time, though, I can't, just abandon my, my allegiance to this movie because this is what got me interested in Stephen King in the first place. So you get what I'm saying. But, yeah, I mean, and also, too, the commentary on here is pretty interesting. You get some interesting tales about how, like Mick Garris, the director, he talks on the commentary about, he's a devoted atheist. He does not believe in ghosts or spirits or any of that other kind of stuff. But he tells a story that's really interesting about how they were filming a scene. They were in the lobby of the Stanley Hotel one day, and they were filming a scene, and like right above their head, they kept hearing, like somebody like stomping their foot on the floor, and they kept hearing this sound, and didn't know what it was. It's like, okay, what is that? So they're trying to get the scene shot, but this thumping keeps going on, and then turns out that the room right above them is I think it was one of the crew members. It was one of their hotel rooms. So they kept sending them up there to check and see what was going on, but every time they went up there was nothing there, nobody in there. Nothing going on, any of that kind of stuff. But, so yeah, so even he was kind of like, yeah, that kind of shook me a little bit. But, things like that were happening. Supposedly, like, while they were making the movie, like, crew members thought they saw things or heard things, and cast members thought they saw things and heard things. Supposedly, like, even Steven Weber was like, he was so creeped out by the place that I believe he stayed in another hotel because he didn't even want to be there. But, so anyway, so yeah, but, overall, though, I think if you're a fan of the whole thing, if you're a fan of Stephen King, you're a fan of, The Shining as a whole, like if you've never read the book, if you're interested, even if you're like, well, I love the Kubrick film, but I never read the book, but I'm curious to see like what the changes are, go ahead and check this out, so, but ultimately, like I said, I can enjoy this based on its own merits. That's just me, yeah, fine acting all around, so. Anyway, I think that's pretty much about all I had to say about it. I think I've gone on long enough, but so if anybody took the time to watch this, I thank you for doing it. I appreciate you for doing it. I also hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Subscribe to the Body Bags channel. We have a video every day of the week. I'm the Saturday reviewer, and we got great guys doing all really good stuff. And come on, check us out. We're all pretty good. So. That's it. Take care and enjoy the rest of the theme week, and I'll see you later. Good night.